You probably heard that alcohol is bad for your brain, but how does it actually affect your brain? Scientists have found changes in brain cells as little as 6 minutes after the consumption of alcohol. These changes can create permanent damage, especially in the teen brain. Because your brain isn't fully formed, staying away from alcohol can help protect your developing brain. As alcohol enters your body and makes its way to your brain, it begins to interact with your neuron, or brain cells. There are two types of neurotransmitters that the brain uses to circulate signals: excitatory neurons, glutamate, and inhibitory neurons, GABA. Having a contrasting property, glutamate begins a wave of excitation where GABA inhibits the flow that helps organize and differentiate the results of your brain. When alcohol enters your body, it suppresses glutamate and increases GABA production, so you get less excitation and more inhibition. Because glutamine sites become less effective, information flow becomes slow, and only the largest signals can make it through. This means you perceive less, feel less, and remember less. With developing teenage brains, underage drinking can create a permanent damage to your hippocampus, a part in the brain that deals with learning and memory. When alcohol reaches this part of the brain, a person may have a hard time remembering something that they just learned. Repeated drinking can cause permanent damage to your hippocampus, making learning and holding on the knowledge difficult as they get older. Alcohol can also affect the frontal area of the brain, which controls impulse and thinking through consequences. This can lead to poor decision-making, lack of self-control, and violence both now and into adulthood. The developing brain is more susceptible to addiction. A child that started to drink at an early age is 4 times as much likely to develop an addiction to alcohol than it is to a person who drinks after the age of 21. Doctors and researchers use MRI scanning voxel-based morphometry to show comparisons and differences in the brain structure. Voxel-based morphometry, or VBM, measures volume of the tissue, both the gray matter and white matter in the brain. Overall, AU, or alcohol usage youth groups, show regional differences in the brain structure while being compared to the non-AU youth that shows smaller gray matter volumes and lower white matter unity in relevant brain areas. MRI showed excessive drinking is significantly correlated with smaller left hemisphere cerebellar gray matter GM and white matter WM and smaller right hemisphere cerebellar GM. The second table shows the study of fMRI studies of the AU adolescent. This study is based on brain activity, or you may also have heard it as BOLD, a blood oxygenation level dependent signal. This study evaluated spatial working memory, SWM. AU youth engaged more tasking irrelevant regions, prefrontal and temporal, rather than the more task relevant regions observed for non-AU youth, middle frontal and cerebellar. Drinking among high school students remains a serious problem leading to injuries, poor school performance, increased risk of addiction, and other long-term health problems. Without effective prevention strategies, teenagers and youth are especially vulnerable to early alcohol use and its many damaging consequences, explains Cormo. We found that community and school support and engagement in prevention is critical to shaping a more healthful environment for teens. Strategies such as ones conducted in this study should be further investigated with a focus of sustainability. Alex Wagner, PhD, a research professor at Emory and a senior co-investigator, states, successful prevention efforts must focus on strategies that well-designed scientific trials show are effective, rather than simply doing what feels good or what schools and communities think might help. In the long run, there is nothing more practical than good science, he argued. The interview with Suzanne about teenage alcoholism is as follows. The CDC, or Centers for Disease Control, works to strengthen the scientific foundation for preventing excessive alcohol consumption. They especially work to improve public health surveillance on excessive alcohol use, particularly binge and underage drinking, and related to health outcomes. According to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, the abuse of alcohol by teens has risen in recent years. You can call 1-877-936-2544 to get help with alcohol addiction.